You ever buy a game knowing it's probably going to be terrible, but your curiosity gets the better of you anyway? That was me with Hentai Vs Evil. Now look, when you see a title like Hentai Vs Evil sitting on the PlayStation Store, you already know you're not exactly walking into a masterpiece here. This isn't going to emotionally change your life. This isn't going to redefine gaming. This is the kind of game you buy at 2 o'clock in the morning while eating leftover burgers and questioning every life decision that led you to this moment. But honestly, even with my expectation already buried underground next to the abandoned ET cartridges, this game still disappointed me. And honestly, that deserves an achievement by itself. Because making a bad game is one thing, but making a game so lazy, repetitive, and unfinished that feels like somebody developed it behind a Burger King dumpster during their lunch break, that takes dedication. So today, we're talking about one of the worst PlayStation 4 games I've played in a very long time. It's not just bad, it's abysmal, horrible. This is my review of Hentai Vs Evil. Now technically, this game has a story. I think, maybe. Honestly, it's hard to tell because the game barely explains anything. From what I could gather, you're fighting monsters while rescuing anime girls in these weird horror-themed environments. That's basically it. There's no meaningful storytelling, no interesting characters, no emotional moments, no real world building, nothing. This game just throws random nonsense at the screen and helps flashy anime girls distract you long enough to forget there's no actual substance underneath any of it. Spoiler alert. It didn't work. At no point was I emotionally invested in anything happening here. The entire plot feels like it was written in 5 minutes while somebody burned cheeseburgers in the background. This is where the game completely falls apart. The gameplay in Hentai Vs Evil is genuinely terrible. The shooting feels clunky, movement feels stiff. Combat has also no impact. Enemy AI barely functions. It also feels unfinished. Half the time, it also feels like the game itself is fighting against you. Now, one of the biggest problems here is the complete lack of content. There are only 3 levels in the entire game. Only 3 levels! I've had fast food combo meals with more variety than this game, and somehow the developers expect you to replay these same stages repeatedly across the 2 game modes, rescue and survival. That's it. That's basically the whole game. Now technically, there are multiple playable characters. You start with one girl and unlock the other 2 by rescuing them throughout the levels, which sounds cooler than it actually is, because once you unlock them, they all play exactly the same. There's barely any meaningful gameplay difference between them. So instead of feeling like exciting unlockable characters, they basically feel like slightly different skins pretending to be content. The combat also becomes very repetitive, almost immediately. You can run around shooting monsters over and over with almost no depth or progression. And somehow, the game still struggles performance-wise, which is insane because there's barely anything happening on screen most of the time. Yet the frame rate still drops harder than my soul after hearing somebody order 14 custom burgers 5 minutes before closing time. The entire experience just feels exhausting. Not difficult, not challenging, just cheap! Visually, the game looks really rough. The environments are bland, textures look cheap, lighting feels outdated, animations are stiff, and the whole game has that unmistakable low-budget asset flip energy. Nothing feels polished, nothing feels cohesive. The character models are very clearly the main focus, but once the novelty wears off, you realize there's basically nothing here. The environments especially feel empty and lifeless. At times, it honestly felt like wandering through unfinished PlayStation 3 tech demos somebody found in a discount bin behind a fast food restaurant. Even by lower-budget PlayStation 4 standards, the game looks bad. The sound design somehow manages to be just as bad. There's barely any voice acting at all. Most of the audio is just random character grunts, monster noises, repetitive sound effects, and awkward combat sounds. And honestly, it gets annoying very quickly. Weapons sound weak, enemy noises repeat constantly, and the soundtrack is so forgettable I barely remember it, which is never a good sign. Nothing about the audio adds atmosphere or excitement. At one point, I seriously considered muting the game entirely, listening to somebody grill burgers on YouTube instead. That honestly would have improved the experience. Before we can even give the game a score here, we gotta go to our TTBurger the goods and the not so goods. For the TTBurger the goods, Believe it or not, there are a few positives here. The game is so ridiculous that it occasionally becomes unintentionally hilarious. There were moments where I genuinely laughed, not because the game was clever, but because of how unbelievably stupid everything was. And honestly, that accidental comedy gave me more enjoyment than the actual gameplay. And I'll also give you this. At least it knows exactly what kind of audience it's targeting. It's not pretending to be some deep emotional masterpiece. Unfortunately though, that doesn't excuse how unfinished and low effort everything feels. For the TTBurger, the not so goods, where the hell do I even begin? First off, the gameplay is awful. The controls feel clunky, combat is repetitive, only 3 levels, only 2 modes, the unlockable characters barely play different from each other, the story barely exists, the graphics look cheap, performance is rough, enemy AI barely functions, and the trophies are so ridiculously easy to unlock. It just honestly feels lazy. You can basically 100% this game ridiculously fast, with almost no effort, which honestly matches the rest of the experience perfectly. Nothing feels earned, nothing feels polished. It just feels like a game that throws trophies at you, hoping you'll forget you're playing something held together with tape and broken code, and leftover cheeseburger grease, and burnt patties. This honestly feels like one of those games designed purely to bait people into buying it because of a tile alone. Once the novelty disappears, there's basically nothing worthwhile underneath. Playing this game felt like ordering a giant burger combo, only to open the wrapper and discover somebody forgot the meat, the cheese, and half the bun. And that's basically this game. An empty shell pretending to be a finished product. At the end of the day, Hentai Vs Evil is one of the worst PlayStation 4 games I've played in a very, very long time. It's repetitive, poorly designed, badly optimized, and painfully shallow. The concept might get a few laughs initially, but the actual game underneath the gimmick is generally terrible. And honestly, there are thousands of better PlayStation 4 games you could spend your money on. Or honestly, just go buy some burgers instead. At least the burgers provide happiness. This game definitely doesn't. The score I give Hentai Vs Evil, I give the score an abysmally low score of a 0.5 out of 10. A 0.5. You're probably wondering, why'd you give it a 0.5, Tony? It did a couple things that were good, so that's why I gave it the 0.5 there. But anyway guys, that was my review of Hentai Vs Evil on the PlayStation 4. Have you played this disaster? Did you somehow enjoy it? Or did the game make you question reality just like it did for me? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this review, be sure to like, subscribe, and check out other retrospectives and reviews on this channel. And as always, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time in the next review.